First of all, I want to get the elephant out of the room. Just to be clear, both of you provided deposition testimony, and in your depositions, neither one of you ever stated that President Joe Biden interfered with your investigations, correct?
The transcript doesn't include that, no.
Yeah, the transcript does not include that.
Nor does it include that Merrick Garland interfered with your investigations, correct?
The transcript does not say that, no.
Thank you. The reason that I say that is because it's the insinuation that this committee is trying to make, or at least one side of this committee is trying to make, is that for some reason there was interference, and my colleagues continue to make sure that they outline the fact that this investigation actually started under the Trump administration. So that's the reason about who appointed who comes up. But at the end of the day, we have no evidence whatsoever that the president nor the Attorney General of the United States interfered. But I also want to make sure that we outline some legal principles, since we've got so many newfound prosecutors today on this committee. Number one, just to be clear, just because you investigate something, it doesn't necessarily mean that there will be a conviction, correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay. In fact, in our criminal justice system, you are cloaked in a presumption of innocence. That is what happens under the Constitution, okay? So we all have a role to play. Your role is investigative, correct?
Correct.
All right. So then you have an AUSA, who usually is the one that is responsible for taking the evidence. Actually, they probably have an investigator in their office. There's usually an investigator that is directly within their office that will review any documentation that you provide, and then they will sit down and talk to the AUSA's office about recommendations, like what the charges will look like and things like that. Is that not correct?
If that's correct, I've never seen that.
Okay. Well, let me be clear. There is a level after you get done with your investigation in which the U.S. Attorney's Office then will look at the evidence that you've provided, and they will make decisions, correct?
Yes, and they all four assigned attorneys agreed with recommending felony and misdemeanor tax charges.
I heard your testimony before. I'm not going to dispute that. The difference is I've done the defense side of this before. So as far as I'm concerned, it sounds like a sweetheart deal, because I've never pled anyone to every single count of a federal indictment in the first place, unless they only had one count. I have always negotiated, and unlike on the state level, I typically do my negotiations a lot of times before there's even an indictment, because a lot of times my clients are actually turning evidence over and all kinds of things. But the thing is, those conversations have never taken place with an investigator. They always take place with the U.S. attorney. So the point is, you don't have the ultimate charging authority. The people that did, they decided to do what they decided to do for whatever reasons, correct?
So in my experience, I've always been a part of that, at that table, talking to the AUSA and talking about the charging decisions. So that's not accurate to say that I'm not,
So for this,
investigator is not involved in that
So
process.
this time it was a little different for you, and that's why you felt as if something was wrong. But I want to get to something else really quickly. I want to talk about what we should be prosecuting. We should be looking at the fact that in 2017, Trump's first year in office, he also made $6.5 million from China, his tax returns show. The source of the China payments is not clear from the returns. The payments were a surprise, since Trump is an outspoken critic of the $5.8 million that Hunter Biden made. The difference is Trump was our president when he made this money from China, whereas I'm sure you would agree with me, Hunter Biden has always been a private citizen. We've got a lot of other stuff. In fact, it's clear that Trump never paid more than $750 in taxes for, I want to say, a total of like 2 years of his taxes, which is absolutely insane. But we also know that it showed that Trump claimed large cash donations to charities, but the report said the IRS did not verify them. The report also said that while Trump's tax filings were large and complicated, the IRS does not appear to have signed experts to work on them. That is shameful. In addition to that, we heard testimony earlier that talked about whether or not you executed a search warrant under Section 913.420 of the DOJ's Justice Manual. It specifically states that when searching the premises of an attorney that is the subject of an investigation, prosecutors are expected to take the least intrusive approach consistent with vigorous and effective law enforcement. It's kind of what they did for Trump when they gave him a number of opportunities to turn over the documents, our national secrets, that he kept in the toilet. But he chose not to, and that's why he is facing federal charges down in Florida. And finally, I just want to make sure that we clear up something about the Central Park 5, because I don't think my colleague from the other side of the aisle understands that not only were they found to be not guilty, they were paid $41 million in a 2014 settlement because their civil rights in that lawsuit were violated. In addition to that, we do know that one of the Central Park 5 now serves on city council, Yusuf Salam. So I ask unanimous consent that I allow this
Without
New York Times
objection to
article be
ordered, and
admitted.
the lady's time's expired, but would the lady yield a quick question?
So who?
Would you yield a question?
Yes.
You made the argument that Trump received $6 million from China or something, and Hunter Biden received the money from China. Do you know exactly what Hunter Biden did to receive the money from China? Because that's something we've had a hard time trying to figure out. I think I know what Trump's businesses were. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just know what his businesses are. I don't know what the Biden's businesses are.
And you don't know what it's not.
Well,
I'm sorry?
And you don't know what it's not either.
But what I'll say.
So you have no idea why or why not he received that money.
What I will say is,
You have no evidence about it.
Can I submit this MSNBC or this NBC article for the record as well?
Without objection, so ordered.
And I will say that in this article, it specifically says that the source of a number of Trump's monies, it was unclear. He just said that he did have businesses there. He did say that he had opened some bank accounts in China, but they could not find the source of the monies that were paid to him from China.
Chair recognizes Mr. Turner from Kansas for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you both for being here today. There's a lot of information. Let's try to quickly lay this out for the American people, okay? So quick answers. How long have...
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Johnson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dettelbach, thank you for your service. Many of my colleagues and I have been strong proponents and supporters of the use of body cameras and funding for those cameras. And so in some ways it's rather surprising to read that Chairman Jordan recently criticized you, he just did it today, about body cameras and what happened to them, why they were not being worn. But meanwhile, House Republican Appropriations Committee Chair Hal Rogers just last month criticized your budget request for its department-wide emphasis on equipping federal agents with body cameras. Is there anything in response that you would like to say to Chairman Jordan, who supports the use of body cameras, versus Chairman Rogers, who wants to defund the use of body cameras?
Well, it's not my position to get in the middle of two chairs, but I will say this. Anybody, Chairman Jordan or anybody, we've been implementing this policy for several years. Anybody who wants to support it, I welcome to the effort.
And we need to fund it. And let me just move on, because there's been allegations that this gentleman who the chairman just discussed, Mr. Malinowski, suggesting that he was just a hobbyist. You know, we call him an unlicensed gun dealer, but they say he was a hobbyist and a firearms enthusiast. In your opinion, is someone who buys and then almost immediately resells at least 150 firearms over a 3-year period a hobbyist or an unlicensed gun dealer? Are they a hobbyist or an unlicensed gun dealer?
My opinion and your opinion and others' opinions are not what counts. What counts is the federal judge's opinion, who reviewed the search warrant affidavit here and found probable cause that 2 separate federal laws had been violated relating to unlawful firearms acquisition and dealing. And in that affidavit, which is public, some of the things that are set forth are that Mr. Malinowski had not obtained a license, that he obtained about 150 firearms in the period prior to this incident, that he sold a good number of them, some one day after he had obtained them, that one of those firearms was found on the person of a 15-year-old Norteño gang member in California. Another was sold in the backseat of a car in Little Rock to a convicted robber. Others were found on a drug dealer in California, a kilo of marijuana, other drugs in the back, baggy scales consistent with distribution. And so, respectfully, these are not victimless crimes, and it is up to Congress and the judge to make that determination. Those agents were present pursuant to the terms of a federally judicially approved warrant. The time they were there was approved. The day they were there was approved.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any idea how many unlicensed gun dealers, just like Mr. Malinowski, are operating in this country, selling multiple tens of hundreds of firearms yearly?
I don't. We can get back to you with we recently published a national firearms trafficking report that talked about the fact that the percentage of people who are trafficking in this manner has now grown to be the #1 way that people are unlawfully dealing firearms. So 40% of all our criminal trafficking cases deal with the notion of people engaged in the business of dealing without a license. That has grown over time.
Okay, let
growing.
me get this question in. You know, prior to your confirmation in 2022, there had been a 7-year lapse between confirmed ATF directors to the time when you were confirmed. And during that 7-year period, the crime rate and violent crime rate in the country went up and was going up. And then COVID hit, which caused it to recede for a second. And then you were appointed. It's not a mere coincidence, is it, that your appointment and confirmation has resulted in a decrease in crime, in violent crime?
To me, it's the men and women out in the field who are doing the work. I have the privilege to lead them, and I give all the credit to the brave ATF agents and police officers who are out there risking their lives. But thank you for saying this, but it really is them who's doing the work.
Well, without leadership, it's hard to get things done, and I thank you for your leadership. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Before I begin my questioning, I want to remind everyone that the information recorded in the FBI Form 1023 that my Republican colleagues keep citing is not evidence of anything. This form reflects years-old, secondhand, unverified information from a Ukrainian oligarch as relayed to the FBI by a confidential human source. These unverified, secondhand allegations have been repeatedly debunked and undermined, including by the confidential human source who relayed this information to the FBI. The tip recorded in the Form 1023 was thoroughly explored by the U.S. attorney handpicked by Donald Trump, which was Attorney General William Barr, and the assessment was closed. Finally, Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's former business partner who worked with the Ukrainian oligarch in question, told this committee in a transcribed interview in July that he had no knowledge of any such payments allegedly described in this form. Repeating the same lies will not somehow turn them into truths. Kind of like the election that Trump lost. Say it with me, he lost it. Repeating the same lie that he won wasn't going to turn the election around. The lost in this chamber keep pushing lies and lunacy on behalf of a multi-time loser. So if we're going to talk about China, let's go ahead and talk about China. And let's talk about the dealings. And let me point out the fact that right now, each of you has admitted that none of you are fact witnesses. We walked in without facts. And unfortunately, because what we say isn't necessarily evidence, we have wasted the American people's time, and we are going to walk out of this chamber and we still have no facts that are leading to anything. But let me give y'all a little bit of tea while we're here. So I have a document that I will ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record. It's a fact sheet on President Trump's shady business dealings with the Chinese government.
What are you entering in, a record from who?
This is from the Congressional Integrity.
Congressional Integrity Project, the dark money pack?
I object.
I object to that too.
Of course y'all gonna object, but we gonna talk about it. So, it says, Trump has extensive financial ties to the Chinese government. President Trump collected millions from Chinese government-owned entities while in office. I have the best tenants in the world, President Trump was well aware of the multi-million-dollar lease to Chinese interests. President Trump promised to donate foreign government profits while in office, but he donated less than a third of his proceeds from the Chinese government. President Trump maintained 3 foreign bank accounts while in office, including one in China. President Trump's business with China raised legal and ethical concerns. President Xi loves the people of China. He loves his country, and he's doing a very good job. Let me tell you something. I don't want to talk about what y'all want to act like is some big mystery, because we keep sitting here, and Professor Gerhardt, just to be clear, as my colleagues have even tried to provide evidence, which they're not the ones to provide evidence, have you ever heard them say "if" since we've been sitting here for I don't know how long?
Yes, I've been taking a tally.
Oh, okay. Can you show us? Can you tell us what the tally is?
More than 35 times, the Republican witnesses and Republican members of the committee have used the word "if."
Thank you so much for that. Because honestly, if they would continue to say "if" or "Hunter" and we were playing a drinking game, I would be drunk by now. Because I promise you, they have not talked about the subject of this, which would be the president. But let me tell you something that was so disturbing as I walked in to this chamber today. As I prepared, I said, what is the crime? Because when you're talking about impeachment, you're talking about high crimes or misdemeanors. And I can't seem to find the crime. And honestly, no one has testified of what crime they believe the president of the United States has committed. But when we start talking about things that look like evidence, they want to act like they blind. They don't know what this is. These are our national secrets. Looks like in the shitter to me. This looks like more evidence of our national secrets, say on a stage at Mar-a-Lago. When we're talking about somebody that's committed high crimes, it's at least indictments. Let's say 32 counts related to unauthorized retention of national security secrets, 7 counts related to obstructing the investigation, 3 false statements, 1 count of conspiracy to defraud the United States, falsifying business records, conspiracy to defraud the United States, 2 counts related to efforts to obstruct the vote certification proceedings, 1 count of conspiracy to violate civil rights, 23 counts related to forgery or false document statements, 8 counts related to soliciting, and I could go on because he's got 91 counts pending right now. But I will tell you what the president has been guilty of. He has unfortunately been guilty of loving his child unconditionally, and that is the only evidence that they have brought forward. And honestly, I hope and pray that my parents love me half as much as he loves his child. Until they find some evidence, we need to get back to the people's work, which means keeping this government open so that people don't go hungry in the streets of the United States. And I will yield.